point that out to the owner that, perhaps your energies are mingling.
Well, I can only imagine, if you go stay in a hotel room or a hospital.
Hospitals are the worst. Hospitals are the worst.
Why are hospitals the worst? You worked in one.
Because there are so many imprints, not only of the people who are there and during healing processes, the things people shed, but there's also a lot of energies of, people passing and, things like entities, which you actually learn to see after a while. And
now, has anybody ever hired you to go into a hospital and do a space clearing?
I don't space clear hospitals. They're not really owned or presenced by anyone. I space clear homes
and if it's,
or
but
businesses.
if it's needed so much, why not?
It's not a question of it's needed so much. It's more like it's not an environment that you can own. It's not an environment that you can call your own. And in order to space clear a place, you would have to be able to really delineate the space and own it.
Okay, so what about like the person who's staying in the hospital?
You could possibly space clear a person's room.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That you possibly could do.
Yeah.
But just randomly going into a hospital, you could really invite havoc. You want to have some clarity instead of just, shooting off into the dark.
It sounds to me like space clearing the hospital would be the most difficult challenge someone could do, and yet it's probably the place that needs to be cleared the most because it's supposed to be for healing.
And that is something that the Space Clearing Network that I work with, Karen Kingston, who's the trainer, that is something we're putting vision on. But it is a really big undertaking. And so what we want to do is really put some clarity and vision on it before we do take it on.
Yeah.
There are several of us who can't wait to get our hands on that.
Yeah, well, what I would hope that would be done is first the individual in the individual's room, and then work from there. Just some studies. I mean, you may even be able to get some hospitals to allow you to do research.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Like
I know there's been studies like prayer and healing, a couple hundred studies.
Yes, I've actually read a number of them, Larry Dossey's work.
Yeah, I interviewed Larry Dossey.
Oh, wonderful man.
Yes, he
wonderful
is.
Man.
But have a control group and see, hey, the space clear, the patients who've had the room space cleared got out of the hospital like one-third spent one-third less time in the hospital.
Well, one of the people who does space clearing in England, she's actually done a course for therapists of how to really space clear a therapy room. Because people walk in there and they shed and they just leave not only their problems but their energetic debris. And you go in there as the next patient and you don't want to sit in that gunk. And so one of our space clearers, Beverly Wood, who works in London area, has actually pioneered this branch of space clearing.
And what are some of the techniques you'd use to space clear a room after a therapy session?
The same techniques you would to a home. One of the things you do is in the second stage, after you've really given a person feedback, you walk around and you clap the room out and you really feel where the dull imprints are, or use these exquisite Balinese bells where the sound really moves with real depth and beauty into the walls, and you can really feel things clearing. So those are some of the ways in which we space clear.
Or space clearing after like a couple has an argument.
Yeah, totally.
Or space clear before making love.
Lovely, lovely. I mean, space clearing after before births, after deaths, when people have been ill. Space clearing
times.
Exactly.
Most stressful times of our lives.
When people want to usher a whole new period in their life, you space clear and you really set intentions. Because that's the third part of space clearing. You really take a space and you make it sacred by imbuing the walls with what it is the person really wants in their life, what it is they're really trying to bring forth and birth in their life. And then the walls really hold that and become something that cradles someone and supports someone.
Have you ever requested or suggested to someone that they move out of the house?
I haven't. I personally, in my own practice, haven't. But Karen has actually mentioned that she has had instances when there's just too much geopathic stress, or it's...
I had one patient, environmental stress, mold.
Yeah, some situations are really non-salvageable. I, in my own practice, have not had to do that. But some of the space clearers I work with have relayed stories of having to do that, yeah.
Now, even though your office is in Chicago, you mentioned that you work a lot in the North Shore area.
Yeah, I as a space clearer will travel throughout the U.S. to do space clearings. I recently did some in Washington, D.C. area. I traveled throughout the U.S. There's only 20 of us in the world.
Could you go to the United States House of Representatives and
I'd
the
love
United
to.
States Senate?
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Oh, can you imagine all the old ghosts
Yes, I can.
in that room?
You know, I've actually thought about, you know, if we were to clear it, like the White House, you know, what else would you be clearing from there? What would be the things you could really energy sense? I mean, when you get trained as a space clearer, the world is rich as a field of vision. You know, what you see, what you feel, what you know.
Now, you're on Infinity's faculty, are you not?
Yes, I am. I've done some work there. I've taught some courses. I recently taught a clutter clearing class there.
And what are some of the things you teach in your clutter clearing class?
I just did a class. It was a beautiful class. We had 25 participants, and really the nitty-gritty of what is the stuff that's holding people back, why they've accumulated, and what they need to do to shed and move forward. And what's neat in a class like that is you really get to see the way people are holding emotionally. It's not about the stuff. You know, the stuff is just there.
When you see people holding emotionally, what are they holding on to, and where in the body do you find people hold on to a lot of stuff?
You know, it'll vary from person to person. Someone might be holding on to their profession, and so all the accoutrements of the profession that they've not been in for 20 years, but it represents this status, and so it's there, or things they want to get to, they will get to, you know, and as a body worker, you know, being able to say, oh, it's just stashed there, it's stashed there. You can't say, you know, for some people there's deep sadness in their heart, sorrow in their heart or in their belly. That's more of what in ISIS you get to.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking you talk about the negative that's held on to in a house and a person. What about holding on to the positive?
Oh, you don't, when you do a space clearing, you don't shatter any of the joy. You don't, that's one of the things people worry about.
Do you sense the positive?
Oh,
when you
yes,
do it?
of course. I mean, but I'm talking about clearing it, but when you're doing a space clearing, there's really moving sometimes, because there you are in someone's room and you feel the love between the couple. Or you feel the beauty of, you know, somebody really rooting for someone. Space clearings are really moving because you get to the very depth. I mean, that's one of the things I loved about psychiatry. You know, it was deep. You got to really see people like when they were bare bones. And in space clearing, you get the same thing, but at least you get to move with it to the next higher level. So yeah, in terms of the kind of vision you have, you know, in terms of what you can bring forth in people.
And